You've got to get to the point where you ask good questions at the beginning so that you know, is the product I'm creating, is the video I'm editing, is the video I'm even shooting really meeting the end goal of the end user?
One of the most important things is not just to deliver on the job that you got hired for, but to do so in a way that you get hired for the next job by that client. And the only way that you get hired that next time is if you provide equal or more value than what you were set out, what the client said or didn't say at the beginning. And the best way to find that out, I think, is getting those questions answered on the front end.
I need you to understand that part of this isn't just the words you use. Part of this is how you show up on set. It's how you talk to them. It's the rapport you created before you ever hit record. It's all those things that people don't think about, but it's what can make you as a video producer stand out, is your ability to show up and get people to say things, get people to open up about things, to like be themselves in front of the camera. That doesn't happen without someone who knows what they're doing speaking into that.
On episode 430 of the podcast, we talk about how to ask the right questions at the start of a discovery call so that you can deliver what clients actually need, not just what they ask for. We also cover when and how to bring up budget conversations without wasting time on mismatched expectations. And we also talk about why educating clients on your process creates more value than just pitching creative ideas. All that and so much more on today's episode. What is up, friends? I am Ryan Corral from the Grow Your Video Business Show, and I am very excited that you're with me today. Today, I have a conversation with Ryan Holck. He is a brilliant brand messaging and marketing strategist who I met in Orlando, home of Disney, which is always a huge bonus in my book. It's a really, really good conversation. If you are brand new here, you're like, Ryan, who is this guy? Well, there's two Ryans today. There's me, and then there's my guest. Yes. If you're new, welcome. I'm so glad that you're here. I want to share, I have been in the world of video production for over 20 years, running a video business. I've got a team. We have real clients, not fake ones. We do a lot of brand storytelling. We shoot a lot of stuff at our studio. This week, we shot 3 days filming courses for a course creator who we've got a partnership and a revenue share model with, which is a really awesome opportunity for us. So I do the work and I get to share with you what has worked in my production business over 20 years, what hasn't worked, and hopefully you can learn a lot faster from my mistakes and build something that is sustainable and something that allows you to do this work that you love, but also charge what the heck you need to be charging for it, make the kind of money that you deserve to be making, and help the people that you should be helping. So that's my goal, that's my hope, and I also call that my GOAP, goal and hope. Smashed together. I have put together a workshop just for you that isn't inside of the podcast today, where I've taken all of the things and smashed them. Is that the second time I've said smashed? I think those are the only two times I've ever said that. I've put all the things together in a workshop for you that you can get access to for free if you go to studiosherpas.com/10x filmmaker. It's the number 10, it's the letter X, 10x filmmaker. And here's what I believe, that I want you to make more money, but I know that this work is not all about making money. And I know that you know that too. I know that you care deeply about the kind of clients and the kind of creativity and opportunity that you have to make stuff. And so when I use that word 10X or that phrase 10X, it's really about how can you use this business to find more freedom in your life, time, money, to be able to do more of the kind of work that you want to be doing, and not just stuff that you have to do because you have to make a living. So there's a lot more to it. Anyway, you can get access to this workshop where I dive more into my process and things that have worked over the last 20 years and some things that haven't. And that is my gift to you for being here. So thank you again, studiosherpas.com/10x filmmaker to get access to that. And without any further ado, let's jump into this interview with the other Ryan of the day. Okay, here we go. What's up, my friend? Welcome to another episode of the show. With me today is my super special guest, Ryan Holck. I like him so much more. Well, I shouldn't say so much more, but when Ryans meet Ryans, it's just like, man, I'm with you. So yes. Ryan is a brand messaging and marketing strategist whom I met in one of my favorite places in the world, just because Disney is there, is in Orlando. And we have so many mutual friends. I loved your talk at the thing last year, and I love the way that your brain works. And even some of the strategy stuff that we were talking about before we hit record here, I'm like, oh man, we've got a lot in common. So thank you for being here. This is going to be a whole lot of fun today.
Yeah, thank you. I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Let's start with the end in mind. And from your perspective, for you to, this audience, they're filmmakers, video people, people wanting to grow their video agency. What is, if there was only one piece of advice, one thing that we talked about, or that you were able to just make very, very clear for my people, what would you say, or what is that topic?
That most important topic for me is the topic that I wrestled with the most as a creative, and that was, is what I'm creating actually meeting the goals, or is it just doing the task?
And so dive into that a little bit more in regards to what video, how video plays into that.
Yeah. So I started in a nonprofit space, and I was the guy, the creative, sitting there doing Photoshop, and I had a phenomenal video guy and video team that was around him, and just a group of creatives, and we could dream anything. And we had actually a fair amount of leeway in terms of implementation, that if we could prove it, they let us try it. And so it was a really cool growing kind of space to be in. But what we learned in the process was that oftentimes we'd have someone come to us and say, hey, I need X. And they'd tell us what the deliverable was. I need a video, or I need a website, or I need this kind of deliverable. And we'd look at them and go, what are you trying to accomplish? And when we asked what you were trying to accomplish, what is the end goal you want people to do? Oftentimes the thing they had come and asked us for may have been a piece of it, but it wasn't the whole of it.
Yeah.
And so what I realized in the process, and what I carried into agency work and now my strategic work, is that you've got to get to the point where you ask good questions at the beginning, so that is the product I'm creating, is the video I'm editing, is the video I'm even shooting really meeting the end goal of the end user? Are they going to get not just the ROI, but are they going to get the bandwidth and growth? And is it going to work on social? Is it going to work, on a big screen in a fundraising event, or with, if I'm showing it trying to raise VC funds or something? Like, is it going to meet that goal, or is it just a cool video that we thought was going to be amazing and delivered?
Oh man, I remember when I started my business, that was the most exciting thing, is because it was like, the world is my oyster. I can create anything. And when a client pitches their need to me, and for me to start dreaming, like, oh, man, how can we make this sweet? And then when we started getting better gear, or we started dreaming about gear, I'm like, man, if we get this job, we're going to buy this new camera, this new lens, or this new slider, this new thing, so we can try this shot. And it was really about me and stretching my own filmmaking dreams and goals, and trying to get that shot that I saw somebody else get. And how do I do that? Forgetting that the most important thing is not just to, in my mind, I think one of the most important things is not just to deliver on the job that you got hired for, but to do so in a way that you get hired for the next job by that client. And the only way that you get hired by that next time is if you provide equal or more value than what you were set out, what the client, said or didn't say at the beginning. And the best way to find that out, I think, is getting those questions answered on the front end. But then also kind of getting out of your own way of like, this isn't, if you create a business, it's not about you being, super creative and trying to, outdo your last video. It should be showing up for your client and serving them in a way that brings them a ton of value so that you can build a business that's sustainable and keep getting hired and, avoid the feast or famine and all that. Do you have like a killer, like if a client only answered this one question on the front end, after they said like, oh, we need a brand video. And then you're like, ooh, okay. Why do you need that video? Or what is the best question that you ask clients to really understand what it is that they might be after?
I have at least two questions that I start with. And the most important one for me is, who is the top number one person we're trying to reach with this video or this creative element? Mm-hmm. And what is the next step you hope they're going to take at the end of experiencing whatever we create? And that usually those two things then guide a longer conversation, but they at least get us started of knowing the style of what we're going to create, the type of implementation, the length of, maybe that's only 15 seconds. Maybe it's 30. Maybe it's going to take a 5-minute, extended quasi-testimonial, kind of approach. But those at the beginning at least usually start a conversation of, where are we going to go from here?
Mm-hmm. Love those two. My problem, I think I identified somewhat early on to start asking those questions, but then I would get so excited about this idea, this potential opportunity, who the client is. Mm-hmm. And like, man, they're a pretty big business. I know they've got, they make multi-million. So they're going to have a huge budget. And then we would dream and I'd throw out these ideas that are like, they would cost a lot of money. And then I would spend an hour, literally, I would mark my calendar for an hour for this discovery call. And I'd get right toward the end. And then I would, want to talk about budget just real quick, barely, because I was, just afraid of, whatever. And come to find out, they wanted us, instead of me thinking it's going to be a $20,000 or $30,000 job, they're like, well, my nephew quoted us and he could do it for like $800. Like, what do you, obviously you're not, you're doing this full time. So was it going to be like $1,500 or something? I'd be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I just wasted all of that time. So how do you, at what point are you getting into that part of the conversation?
I've been in the same place and quoted a lot of projects where you're like, what you told me you need and what you are willing to pay for are drastically different. I have been sliding the budget conversation closer and closer to the beginning. And not my take has always been, I want this to be an accurate job scope. And what I've learning in the process is that if I sit and do, well, my day rate's going to be this, and I'm going to have to, I'm going to have to rent this gear, and I'm going to need this many people, and I'm going to, that all of a sudden I've added tons of time, and that's not necessarily going to have a return. But what I started realizing was for me to know the typical project that looks like this usually sits in a ballpark estimate of. And I started having that kind of conversation of, the project you're talking about usually runs $5,000 to $10,000. And the scope is dependent on these extra factors, which we're going to have more conversations about. Are you okay with continuing the conversation in that kind of price point? And that dramatically has changed the conversation. I had a consulting client recently who I'm like, here's what, if you want the full scope, here's what it was going to be. And she's like, there's no way I can sell that. It's not that I don't think it's worth it. There's no way I will sell that to the people above me who have to actually write the check. Mm-hmm. So find me something in the middle. And all of a sudden I went, okay, well, that's a completely different conversation then.
Yeah.
But we were able, in a single 45-minute conversation, for me to assess, where are you at? What are you really in need of? Not what are you telling me you need, but what do you actually need delivered? And how do you want us to do everything? Or do you want us essentially to be an outside consultant who just manages your team? And then we could give them, I gave them a price point to work, and she goes, that I could sell. That, like, send me a contract today and I will go run it up the flagpole and get somebody to sign it, because that I know I could sell. They'll see the value in that.
I love that. And that's how a lot of our conversations have, that's just how they happen. It's like when I'm trying to ask, like, we're not really sure what our budget is. And it's like, okay, based on what you're saying, typical projects like that cost from this to this. What I've found super helpful, especially when you've got that person that has to report to somebody else, to start unpacking what's the potential value, if you get this video or you get this new website or whatever, over the next 6 months or 12 months, like, well, let's think through shelf life. You think if you do this video, maybe at most 2 years, we'll just say, like, you can use this for 2 years. So at the end of 2 years, what's the goal? You kind of talk about what's the step that you want people to take. It's like, well, we want them to book a call with us. Okay, well, how many calls does it take to land a client? Well, this many, and we got this math figure. And how much is a client worth? And okay, so at the end of 2 years, you're kind of hoping that you close, or that you get this many new clients, and that would equal about $15 million in new business over the course of 2 years if this thing is working and whatever. And so if I said, hey, it's going to cost $50,000 to get $15 million in business, like, does that seem like a pretty fair? And it's like, well, yeah. I mean, when you put it in that perspective, what I found so often is that people don't take that extra step. I don't take that extra step. Like, when I'm going to hire somebody for graphic design or web or, whatever, I'm not thinking like, hey, if this is working, and how long I'm going to have this thing, probably a couple of years, and what's the potential? What could it help bring in? Because as soon as you start talking about the value, it's like, wow, okay, that becomes easier for them to pitch to their boss. Or if they're the boss, it becomes easier to understand, like, okay, I could see, and normally what I'll do, because what they're describing isn't going to cost $50,000, I'll say, well, now here's the thing. I'm not going to charge you $50,000. That's probably not, I can help you easily spend, but that's probably not what you need in this instance. I just want to have a sense of, do you understand the value of what it is that you're, or what we'd be creating together? And if you do, then it just becomes a lot easier to understand why you would spend and invest in this, versus it just being another line item expense of something we got to do, or, boss said to get video, so we got to, we're getting 3 quotes and blah, blah, blah. Right. Man, that typically is a waste of time.
Yeah, agreed. And when I look back at the contracts that I've lost, they usually hinge not on the inability to deliver, but they hinge on that part of the conversation, that I did not help them make the jump for what the investment return was going to be into their business.
Yeah.
In a way that they immediately went, okay, yeah, no, that makes sense.
So Ryan, when you were presenting those or not presenting, how many case studies do you have where it's like, hey, somebody did this they went from this website to this website, and they saw, an increase in 300% of opt-ins or watch time or whatever. Like, how many case studies? Because I will also say that those people, because I'm in a very similar situation. Sometimes it's really hard to say, well, they did this video and they were able to, do this thing. But I know anytime that I am able to say that this company did this nonprofit was able to do this, and this person was able to do this, then it's like, oh shoot, okay, I can see myself in their shoes, because their their need is similar to ours. So just out of curiosity, like, do you have really strong case studies or testimonials that speak into that value?
I've got a couple case studies. On the nonprofit side, I've got a super solid one that it took them a few years of buying in really to the idea that if we communicated differently, it would impact who we reach and how.
Mhm.
Like they 5 to 6x their annual budget because they figured out how to communicate and how to use email and video and social at a strategic level, not just a we're just throwing stuff out kind of level. And it dramatically changed then how people understood their impact. And
Mhm.
but that took not even as much creative work as it took helping them understand what steps were required mentally to think about what does my audience need to know and what
Yeah.
do I want them to do at the end and how do I share it in a way that's not manipulative.
Mhm.
And on the website side, I've got several of businesses who like they implemented completely redid all their messaging, implemented some specific things that I do with website builds to make sure that you increase your likelihood that people are going to click buttons and actually take action. Who they're like, hey, we tripled phone calls into our brick and mortar building in 4 weeks. Like we had my call ratio went up 30% to book a call. So I've got some of those. Other ones are, and this is where some of what we do at an agency level is hard to track. It's like I know all those things have a cumulative. If you didn't do them, there would not have been growth. But being able to put a pin and go,
Right.
those 4 email sequences that we wrote and these 3 website rebuild pages and these, finding specifics, that part has actually been a challenge. And my integrity
Yeah.
keeps me from sharing information sometimes. Not because I don't believe that we made a difference, but because I don't have a solid enough number to feel like I can put it out there and go, we did X. It
Mhm.
was, you 4X'd yours. Others, when I look at their bottom line and I go, well, the work we did helped you, 6X your
Yeah.
budget. Okay, well, that
Mhm.
one's pretty easy on paper to see. To see.
Right.
So that has been my tension as a creative of going, I see so many people in this space who throw out numbers and I'm like, there's no way these numbers are right.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I appreciate you want to share numbers, but I know how this works and something more happened in the background for that
Yeah.
kind of return.
I am in total agreement. What I've done is when I'm talking to clients that we've done projects for, I'm, reaching back out 6 months later or whatever, I'll say things like, especially when we go to market, but I'll say things to the client like, hey, we did this video as part of this campaign, this greater campaign,
Yeah.
right? Website, part of they've got this market initiative, this thing that they're trying to achieve. So I'll always frame it like that and say, hey, our video helped their campaign, 2x or reach this much revenue or whatever,
Like that.
knowing that the video is not the only thing. I know I'm smart enough to believe that it's the copy, it's it's everything around it, it's everything leading up, it's how they're positioning it and marketing it beyond the initial launch and all of that stuff. But to be able to package it together with all of the other things to say like, hey, this video that we did was a part of this campaign that helped them do whatever. So I sleep better at night throwing it together versus like this video 10x there, whatever. I'm like, ooh. I mean, there are ways to measure that, but it just becomes a little bit harder and maybe not as accurate as the numbers show.
Yeah. I appreciate that. And that's probably actually a way that I could or I should talk about some of it because it's seldom am I the only piece of the puzzle, or is
Yeah.
someone I've contracted the only piece of the puzzle, and so that's part of the difficulty as well. That's a good point. I like that.
You're welcome. And this coaching session is valued at what would you say is a great opportunity or a great advantage that video producers have today in the world of sales, marketing, B2B opportunities?
I think because of the proliferation of video, you have an opportunity to show what a true creative can do in helping tell a story clearly. Because there are so many ways to just create junk video now that true quality video stands out. And if you can help your client tell that story well, it immediately jumps you forward in perception, because it's like, oh, I see this budget. I see, I see the quality of what this team just created. Holy cow. This person's bringing a different level of experience to the table.
What does a well-told story do for a business?
Well-told story helps a business really articulate the heart of who they are, what they do, and the win they're going to provide for people very quickly, in a way that makes it memorable and repeatable.
Yeah, I love that.
So I grew up with Super Bowl Clydesdale ads. Did Clydesdales make sense? I mean, when I look back, I'm like, did these ever make sense? Well, I get it, sort of, but they're super memorable. And what did people talk about? They talked about the dang Clydesdales in the snow, like pulling beer kegs or something. I mean, but it told a story that immediately like went beyond somebody sitting in a bar. And they didn't just tell it once, they told it for a decade. And so now, are we going to tell Clydesdale stories? Probably not. But what does this business need that would help us stand apart, not just in the quality of production, but in our ability to tell a clearly articulated story about who they are and what they do? Or at its very least, my default, and this may be problematic at some levels for businesses, but my default is always, when all else fails, tell a testimony. Get somebody in front of the camera and tell me how your life was impacted by this product, this service, this person, this nonprofit. Like, when all else fails, give me the face of someone whose life was changed, and run with it.
Yeah. At the end of the day, I would tell anybody, man, as much as I love creating these documentary style brand stories that are beautiful, emotive, all of those things, not everybody has the budget for that, but everybody has the budget for hopping on a Zoom call with a happy past client and having them talk about what was their life like before and what is their life like now. If you're not doing that, man, you're in it. Not you. I'm just saying anybody, any business that's not doing that. It's like, wow, you are really missing a golden opportunity. What was your favorite all-time Super Bowl commercial?
Probably the Bud Bowl.
Dude, I wrote that down when you were talking about Clydesdale, because in elementary school, there was almost a riot right around Super Bowl time where, third, fourth, fifth grade kids are screaming, "Tastes great, less filling, tastes great." I did not remember this story for so long, but as soon as you started talking about Super Bowl commercials, I was like, I want to ask him what his favorite was. And I was like, what is mine? I'm like, oh, it's the Bud Bowl. Totally.
Yeah. And it wasn't that I could tell you what any one of those ads were about. I mean, other than it, because it was a mini series almost. Which in some ways was a great predecessor to how we tell stories. I mean, how does every Netflix story happen now? Everything's in a series. So, I think some of those were those predecessors at an ad level. I also love some of the Doritos ones that were done not by Doritos, because I'm actually not a fan of some of their commercials. I actually like the ones created by their fans when they did the fan campaign ones. So
brilliant.
Yeah.
That's so fun. Not to digress, but
sorry.
That's so good. Okay. Let's talk about the difference, the biggest difference in your business, that you were able to identify. Cause I think a lot of us, when we get into, doing the thing, it's like client says, here's what we need. And we're putting all this brain power and energy into helping them plan and figure out, is this the best way to do this? And okay, now I've got this amazing strategy and like, let's implement it. And oh, you're not going to hire us? Oh, dang it. What was the journey like for you? And how do you, speak to somebody who might not be thinking the way that they should be about their production business?
I think the biggest thing for you to recognize is that because this is a service industry, we have to be in the business of serving people. And that our goals as a business owner, are to pay the bills and deliver quality product. But at the end of the day, we have to help them meet their goals, and or they will never hire us again and they will never speak our name to another person. And if they do speak our name to another person, it may not be positive. So for me, part of it has been figuring out where is the line where I cross from creative to strategic educator, and helping a client understand the process of getting there is not just me showing up and creating a graphic or setting up a camera. There's stuff that happens before that in the planning. There's stuff that happens after it in post, and all of it is part of the process. But I'm finding more and more that clients, they think things just magically happen. Like you throw a prompt into AI, it just magically the creative happens. And people are like, why does that cost so much? I'm like, because that's 100 hours of project time. And they're like, it's what? Like, let me step you back and walk you through how do I know that? Because I've done it 50 times.
Right.
And so what I'm finding more and more is that I have to be an educator in the process, and I have to have built into my timeline and my sales process a willingness to be an educator. Because if I can, sometimes the differentiating factor between me getting business and another agency is my willingness to say, I appreciate what you're trying to do. Let me tell you really quick about the process. Here's what to expect. Whether you hire me or someone else, here's what it should look like. And if it doesn't, you've probably not found the right person. But to find a way to do that in a quick fashion, so that you aren't, you haven't burned 3 days, pitching a client that's has no intention of spending money with you.
Mm-hmm. For the video producer, I just had a similar conversation recently. Somebody who's newer in this work, probably their confidence is like, oh, I know how to, hold a camera. I know how to get good audio and those things. But man, you start talking about video marketing or strategy, or like, golly, that just seems way above my pay grade. How would you encourage somebody in that space to think a little bit bigger than probably how they are of themselves in what they know?
I would say that good questions lead to great creative. And so if you could sit and think about what are 2 or 3 things that I could ask a potential client that would help me understand what they need, but would also help reveal to the client what truly is going to be the change moment in this project for them. And that, what I find is that actually changes from client to client. Some clients, they're more focused on the dollar. Some are more focused on the creative. And so it's getting in there and just starting to ask questions about, okay, let's not talk about who we're trying to create. What do you want people to experience here? What do you want? What beyond the end goal, how does this fit into your brand? How does it fit into the experience you want people to have? What is the current culture in your organization that you want somehow reflected in this? And trying to figure out, okay, as a creative, how can I deliver something that marries these together? And then help them. Okay. And I'm assessing and going, okay, I think that's 20 hours of project. Okay. I think that's 30 hours of, okay. And I'm doing the math and going, okay, so just so you understand, what I think you're wanting here is typically the project is going to look like this. And those pieces walk through a procession, like here's the planning phase, here's the, I find that when I can do that, it helps sometimes justify the price point too, because all of a sudden they've gone, oh, they aren't just showing up one day and I'm going to have a deliverable the next day. Like they realize, oh, it's a 100-hour project. So when you say it's X number of dollars, they're going, oh, well, that makes sense. For me on web development, I've broken every project into 4 phases. And it's your project's going to go through these 4 phases. Here's what to expect at a 30,000 foot level. Here's what to expect. The typical person takes 6 to 8 weeks to run through this process. So the price point is, and all of a sudden I've helped them understand I think about projects differently. I'm a little more strategic. My price point is going to be higher, but they understand why. And it just helps people like make those cosmic jumps. So what I'm finding is if I can ask the right questions at the beginning, it helps me assess that so that I can help them understand, oh, here's what to expect. And then if they go find somebody else who, lowballs it, like your $800 video offer guy, then they go, oh, that's a very different product. Like I'm paying for something completely different than what I'm going to get from the other guy.
Yeah. The game changer moment for me is when my discovery calls went from, me just asking a lot of questions, which is really great, to helping a client understand what kind of client are they. There's one client that comes to us that has a roadmap, or they've got storyboards, or they know exactly what they want. They just don't have the beautiful cameras, the editing ability. So they really just need us to show up as a technician. Then the other client that comes to us is one that needs a strategic partner. They need not just our cool cameras and all of that stuff. They need a thinking partner to help them think strategically. Okay, so why this video? Why now? Like what is, this video goes great. What does it do for your business? How does it impact? Does it change? If there's no impact, why are you doing this video? Like, let me just save you $10,000, $20,000. Just don't do it. Do something else. Helping people identify, oh, yeah, that's me. We want that help. We don't do interviews where I don't know how to get a golden soundbite. I don't know how to do any of that. So to have you guys to trust that you're going to do that, because what I'll tell them is like, hey, if you just have a show up and do the thing, like we're pretty good at getting the shot. And, my guys, they can ask some questions if you need them to, but there's a lot different kind of person that we're going to put on set when you just need us for as a technician versus a thinking strategic partner. And that costs more. And they're like, well, they just start putting the pieces together and they're like, that makes sense. I didn't do that for so many years. I didn't and would just pitch, great ideas and strategy and all this stuff before anybody would hire us. And what a waste. Now we sell that as a service, and people come to these meetings where we're just going to talk about strategy. I'm just going to ask a bunch of questions and they're taking notes and they're bringing their boss in. And I'm like, this is hilarious. And the boss is leaning in and taking notes. And I'm like, man, I feel like I've arrived as a business owner. And it's not even about like knowing all the things. It's just helping a client understand what do they want? What do they need? And then providing them the solutions for what either one, and they're very different solutions.
Very much so. Very much so. One of the things that I have done with some clients is I've got clients who have said, we would like you to work yourself out of a job. We would like you to help our team learn some core things so that we could be more proficient, and you take more of a consulting role and less on the deliverables. And one of the things that I've done with this organization is, let me help you collect better stories and from the people you're serving. And so we transition from me hiring a team or me personally doing the interview to them doing the interview. I gave them, here's the base questions that I start every interview with, these just get you started. These are where you're going to go if you want to get someone to like get comfortable in front of the camera and start. And the first 2 or 3 were horrible. Horrible. And they came
God.
back to me and they're like, we asked your questions and the responses were bad. I'm like, okay, first of all, thank you. Thank you.
Mhm.
But second of all, I need you to understand that part of this isn't just the words you use. Part of this is how you show up on set. It's how you talk to them. It's the rapport you created before you ever hit record. It's all those things that
Yeah.
people don't think about, but it's what can make you as a video producer stand out is your ability to show up and get things, get people to say things, get people to open up about things, to like be themselves in front of the camera. That doesn't happen without someone who knows what they're doing speaking into that.
Mm-hmm. And you grow into it. You get more confident the more you do it. But I think what it helps, that approach helps you realize what you're actually good at.
Mhm.
Because I think there's a lot of like unknown talents that you just assume that, oh, everybody's a good interviewer and everybody can get this somebody. It's like, no. You know, this client come back to you because they're stoic or they don't have the empathy or whatever. And most filmmakers, like, they're creatives, so they feel. And that's why so many corporations, the big companies, want to hire people like us, because we feel differently, and they need to create marketing that has emotion, because we all know that we buy stuff because of the way things make us feel, and then we'll later justify those decisions based on logic, numbers, and data, and all of that stuff. And people are smart. Corporations are smart, so they bring in people like us to, like, hey, you know, help us, like, you know, let our CEO, you know, she needs to let her hair down and just be calm, and then you can do that. You have a skill, and it's like, oh my gosh, like, that's a skill that people will pay a lot of money for. Ryan, dude, this is so good. I'm so inspired. Yes, energized, all of the things. I want people to know, what are all of the ways that they can connect with you if they're interested in web work or strategy or just whatever. Where can they find you? How can they get in touch with you?
Yeah, so I think of my world as two pieces. So I've got agency world that is more on the brand messaging and website implementation of all of that messaging. And so the agency side is Distill Your Story, distillyourstory.com. The strategic Ryan's brain marketing and long-term, like, goal setting, whiteboarding, kind of even fractional CMO process is through ryanholck.com, and help kind of marry the two together. But yeah, if you're needing either of those kind of approaches, I'd be happy to have a conversation.
Awesome. Thank you, my friend. Really appreciate it. How would you like to leave us today?
I would say, do not be afraid of the creative process, because you were made to be creative. And at the same moment, it is not everything you are, that your creativity is a piece of what you are and who you are, but it is not the entirety of it. And so in client work, don't allow yourself to be so wrapped up in the deliverable that it defines the entirety of your life.
That's good. That's freeing. I love that. Awesome, my friend. Thank you again. Really appreciate it. Thanks for listening, friend. Hope this episode was really good. If so, or if not, regardless, I would love to hear from you. So leave a comment below this video, or you can reach out via email. I'm doing lots of stuff with my hands today. I started watching The Godfather this morning during my workout, so maybe that's why. Maybe not. I don't know. Okay, I digress. My email is ryan@studiosherpas.com. Okay, email ryan@studiosherpas.com, or leave a comment if you're watching on YouTube or Facebook or wherever you see this video. I would love to hear from you. Love to know if you have any takeaways, any action items, things that you're going to do as a result of hearing the stuff that Ryan and I talked about today. And make sure that you are in the loop. I've got lots of cool stuff happening coming up, and the best way to do that is to be on my email list. And if you haven't signed up for a free workshop in the past, or you haven't bought one of our courses or mastermind or anything like that, then you probably probably aren't on the email list. So the easiest way to do that is to go to studiosherpas.com/10xfilmmaker. Then you can get access to this workshop that I think will really help you in your video business. And if you don't have the time or don't want to take advantage of the free workshop, then just go to studiosherpas.com. And I think you scroll down, actually it's, I don't know, somewhere there's a couple of spots on the actual website that says, hey, we'll send you updates on the podcast, etc. But that's another place where you can sign up to make sure that you're getting these emails. So I put together little plans of action, post these podcast episodes so that you've got some, hey, here are some of the takeaways and here's some things that you can be doing and thinking about as a result of this conversation. So there's that. Thank you for being here. That's all I have for now. I hope you have an incredible rest of your day and your week, your month, the year, your life, all of those things. So thanks again. Appreciate you. Talk to you soon. See you. Bye.